Attention to the following announcement. To interact with our speakers today, kindly use the panel located to the right on this session page. To open and close this panel, select the first icon of the side menu. The first option is live chat, where you can speak with other attendees and comment on the live session. We ask that all conversations be professional, on topic and within CTU standards of behavior. The next tab is polls. Here you will find any polls posted during the live session. The next tab is Q&A. We ask that questions be placed here for ease of locating. Questions placed here will be directed to our speakers. Should you experience difficulties while using the platform, please email us at events@ctu.int for assistance. Today's proceedings is also being streamed to Facebook Live and YouTube.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your lunch break. I'm DJ Anna and I'm your host for this year's CIGF. Before we continue, let me kick things off again with another joke, because I know you guys love my other one. So let's jump into another one. So the internet connection at my farm was really sketchy. So I moved the modem to the barn. Let's just say that now I have stable Wi-Fi. Oh my gosh, guys, the first ever Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum is designed by youth for youth and caters to both students and young professionals in tech who have never heard of internet governance before, as well as young professionals already involved in the sector. Right now, we'd like to invite once again Mr. Rodney Taylor of the CTU and Melissa Munoz-Suro of the CYIGF to deliver the opening remarks.
Thank you very much, DJ Anna. Good afternoon again. I hope you're rejoining us from this morning's session from the 18th Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. Today we are pleased to host the first Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, and if you were following, you know that the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum is 18 years old, so we can consider the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum to be the newborn baby of the CIGF, and we hope that the baby will grow, be nurtured and grow over the next few years. Of course, As I mentioned earlier this morning, when you include and involve young people, all kinds of interesting things happen. And so with the hosting of the CIGF, which was fully planned, organized by the young people from across the region, the topics are very interesting, ranging from the Metaverse to careers in ICT, measuring the internet economy. And so I'm sure that the young people will bring a very fresh perspective to all of these topics, and I'm very, very excited myself to hear what they're going to talk about. And I'm sure that you will also find it interesting. We'll encourage you to post your questions on the chat, encourage you to interact with each other on the Who Below hosting platform. And once again, welcome and thank you for joining us. I'll hand over to Melissa from the Dominican Republic.
Thank you, Rodney. Good day to all. Good day to all. My name is Melissa Munoz. I'm part of Generation Beyond America's group. And also, I'm head of the Digital Change Culture Division here in the Digital Innovation Lab of the Government Office of ICT here in Dominican Republic. Today, I am as well a member of the Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum, or CYIGF, as we're calling it, Planning Committee. On behalf of this committee, I would like to warmly welcome each and every one of you to this first ever CYIF. The planning committee comprises youth from a few very Caribbean countries and who have come together over the past 2 months to co-design and co-deliver this forum. So once again, welcome, and we look forward to you to enjoy the forum and for your active participation in all of the exciting segments which have planned. Thank you very much.
Guess what, guys? Intro to Internet Governance for Youth is up next. We now invite the CYIGF Planning Committee to tell us how the youth can become more involved in Internet governance. Today we have some featured speakers from St. Lucia. We have Keegan Patrick III, MIT graduate student and co-founder of Orbtronics. We also have Antonio Durteville, the Assistant Registrar Records at Sir Arthur Lewis Community College from St. Lucia. And up next, we also will have Naomi Padmore, intern, University of the West Indies Caribbean ICT Research Program from Trinidad and Tobago. But first, let's take in this video.
Hi, I'm Tariq, Chair of the Planning Committee for the first ever Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum. In preparation for this event, we've asked youth from around the Caribbean to summarize their expectations of the forum in 1 or 2 words. This is what they had to say.
Innovation.
Impact. Development.
Digital transformation.
To empower.
Creativity. Connectivity.
Diversity.
Interaction.
United. Awareness.
Engagement.
Inclusion.
So what are you waiting for? Join us on Wednesday, the 24th of August from 1 to 4 p.m. EST for this first ever Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum. To register, you can visit the Caribbean Telecommunication Union's website at ctu.int. See you there.
Naomi, I don't think we could hear you.
Apologies. Hi, welcome again, everyone, to today's inaugural Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum. Myself and Keegan Patrick will be presenting this brief segment to basically set the tone for today's discussions. Now, Many refer to the working definition provided by the WSIS in 2005, but Internet governance can be considered more simply as a multi-stakeholder cooperation on deciding the strategic guidelines, development, and application of the Internet. These stakeholders, some of which can be seen here from this timeline, or group of actors known in other spheres, have their specific roles and function at national, regional, and international levels, with the main aim of maintaining the availability, accessibility, openness, resilience, and security of the Internet. This timeline showcases some of these key milestones. It should be noted that although its roots go all the way back to the 1980s, the official term Internet governance became popularized in that WSIS Forum for Internet Governance in 2006. Shifting to a Caribbean lens, the CTU, enlisted by CARICOM Secretariat, convened its first Internet Governance Forum in 2005. And this was in preparation for the United Nations WSIS Global Internet Governance Forum session that took place in 2006, marking it one of the first regional Internet governance forums to take place. Since then, these meetings have occurred annually, with its main aims being to identify and prioritize Internet governance issues relevant to the region, helping build consensus on Caribbean positions. Notably, one of the key products of this forum is their policy framework, which proposes a vision for the Caribbean knowledge-based society, a mission and guiding principles for the Internet governance policy development, and recommendations for priority action and implementation strategies. Now, the operational structure for the Caribbean Internet governance is no exception to that multi-stakeholder cooperation mentioned earlier. In fact, representatives from Caribbean member states, including members from, including policymakers, regulators, service providers, technical and civil society organizations, and academia, come together to confirm on these regional issues. Now, on the left-hand side, we can see what the existing structure is like. But as Mr. Nigel Casimir mentioned in his presentation earlier, this in the Internet Governance Forum, there is a new model that they would like to adopt, whereby the focus is put on the national Internet governance forums within these territories to basically implement the prescribed recommendations that would have come out from these regional discussions.
The CTU has outlined 6 strategic areas for Internet governance that is as follows. Infrastructure for broadband connectivity, which refers to the network and devices that enable connectivity. One key example of an initiative under this area would be the CASIP program. The second area is the technical infrastructure and operations management of the Internet, more or less referring to the resources needed for stable and efficient operation of the Internet. One of our major initiatives in this area is the CTU's Internet Exchange Point Proliferation Project, which went on to lead to the establishment of 12 exchange points within the Caribbean. Legal frameworks and enforcement encompasses the legal structures put in place to protect Internet users. In this area, we have been able to successfully standardize ICT policies and legislation across 15 member states in the Caribbean. Next slide, please. Internet content development and management would refer to the creation and management of information, that is disseminated through the internet. Initiatives under this area would include the adoption of e-government services that we have seen in various Caribbean countries. Public awareness and capacity building refers to the education and development of the population to use the internet and its resources. One of the major initiatives in this area is CARICOM's single ICT space, who have been attempting to synchronize ICT development across CARICOM member states. And the final area is research, where we look to examine, measure, and report the usage of the internet's resources. This strategic area has been addressed by the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, and other agencies who have conducted studies on ICT usage and internet governance in the Caribbean and Latin America. I believe as we introduce the topic of internet governance, it is imperative to highlight the need for youth involvement. Our youth between the ages of 15 to 29 account for 23% of the Caribbean's population, and the youth account for the largest percentage of internet users globally. I believe, as with any democratic system, the population who laws and regulations greatly affect should have a say in the creation of these laws. It should also be noted that the internet and technology is a rapidly changing field that vastly outpaces the creation of laws and regulations, and we believe the youth can help with accelerating the creation of new laws and policies in tandem with these new innovations, as well as aiding in increasing awareness amongst the population of these new governing laws and policies as they are made. Next slide. We have also enlisted some of our references that refer to some of the statistics and notes that we've made throughout this discussion. And I also hope this introduction has given you a solid foundation of what is internet governance as we move on in today's proceedings. Thank you.
You're muted, Daniel.
Okay. Good day, everyone. Just allow me to share screen. Can someone confirm that you're seeing my screen?
Yes, Daniel.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good day, everyone. My name is Daniel John, and today, alongside my colleagues Jeremy Bash, Sajidan, and Tyler Sudat, we will present on a project we've been working on called Measuring Internet Resilience in the Caribbean. So we'll first talk a bit about the state of internet resilience in the Caribbean. We'll then discuss how we can put internet governance to increase internet resilience. We'll share the strategy we took to measure internet resilience, as well as share the outputs of this project in this presentation. The last thing to note is, because this is a forum, we usually encourage persons to engage with us, leave any comments or questions, and we'll try our best to answer them. Okay, so firstly, what is internet resilience? Well, according to ISOC, a resilient internet connection is one that maintains an acceptable level of service in the face of any faults or challenges to normal operation. So to give an idea of the state of internet resilience in the Caribbean, consider the graph shown below. It shows the average download speeds per Caribbean country. The red line specifies a recommended minimum of 25 megas per second, as specified by the Federal Communications Commission. So from this graph, you can see that most of the countries in the Caribbean actually don't meet this minimum level of service in terms of download speed. Another thing to note is the time period for which this data represents. In the bottom right, you see data was collected between June of 2020 to 2021. And during this time, most of the countries in the Caribbean did not experience a significant network outage, especially for a prolonged period of time. So this data generally represents average download speeds, typically during normal operation, right? And here you can see, even when things are mostly normal, there's still room for improvement. And here in the Caribbean, also, We know that we are no stranger when it comes to challenges. One such challenge being natural disasters. According to the humanitarian response, we're actually the second most disaster-prone region in the world. And during such events, we tend to experience network outages and or a degraded level of service. For instance, this map here, it shows the network coverage after it took place in Haiti last year, with the areas in red showing areas that most likely had a low network coverage. Now, during these times, communication is of vital importance, whether it be to communicate with family members, national agencies, humanitarian organizations, and so on. Thus, to ensure that we coordinate plans efficiently, persons need to have a minimum level of service to communicate. And for them to have access to the service, our networks need to be resilient enough to maintain this level of service. So now the question is, well, how can we use internet governance to increase internet resilience, right? How can we put internet governance to work? And if you have any thoughts or ideas about this, I'd really appreciate if you can leave it in the chat and we'll turn to them later on. But for now, for time's sake, I'll just say there's a couple of things we can do. We can implement rules, policies, standards, and best practices. So for instance, a rule taken from the ITU could be to define and enforce minimum values of quality of service parameters. A recommended policy taken from the CTU could be to ensure that we have a sustained production of metrics, including infrastructure development, quality and usage, to aid in the decision-making process when in terms of policy development. We can also follow standards such as TLS and IPsec to increase the security of our networks, as well as other standards such as the FCC broadband. A practice that we can take, for instance, is to use DNSSEC for routing protection, again increasing the security of our networks. So the thing is, we can't really enforce or govern anything that we can't measure, right? So this is what we sought to do. We sought to take internet measurements, primarily focusing on getting quality of service parameters to analyze the performance of our networks. So these include metrics like download speed, upload speed, and round trip time. I'm now passing on to Tyler to talk a bit about the strategy we use to take measurements.
Thank you, Daniel. So in order to develop our measurement strategy, we had to consider two principles, comparability and collaboration. In terms of comparability, we wanted to ensure that the internet measurements taken is comparable with those around the world, especially from reputable sources. And collaboration, we wanted to work with like-minded institutions in order to create a robust measurement strategy. Now, if you look to the right, is a project roadmap. And you notice that the goal is to take internet measurements. Of course, that is fit for purpose. Again, we need to work with like-minded institutions. And this is where the MIRC team comes in. So the MIRC team is responsible for taking internet measurements in Africa. It's a joint initiative by Internet Society ISOC and African Information Center, AFRINIC. So we collaborated with them and we were able to replicate their internet measurement strategy. However, we needed to ensure that the methodology was localized so it can operate within the Caribbean region. And of course, one of the key outputs is to create a resource-efficient methodological guidebook in order to guide individuals on how to take these internet measurements. Okay, so now the MOU with Internet Society ISOC. So ISOC is a global not-for-profit organization. So they signed an MOU with UE in order to collaborate on internet resilience activities within the Caribbean. So ISOC has a Pulse platform which provides insights and data-driven stories and examines internet trends to help individuals understand the internet's health, availability, and evolution. So it focuses on four main areas: internet resilience, internet shutdown, enabling technologies, and market concentration. Now, how does the Pulse platform measure internet resilience? Well, it does so using four key pillars: security, infrastructure, market readiness, and performance. However, in our MIRC project, we only focus on performance. And hence the reason Danny was saying we measured three key measurement metrics, which were RTT, upload, and download speeds. And of course, the end goal is to be able to provide reliable and seamless internet service to the end users. Now, if you look to the right, we see the overall resilience for the different regions in Africa. So again, the MIRC team was able to get metrics for each of the four key pillars, right? And we're able to get the percentages for each region. So currently, there's only data for Africa. However, with the collaboration with UE, it will extend that data set to include the Caribbean. I know you're thinking, how did they take these measurements? Well, they take these measurements using measurement probes called pods, and Daniel will take you through that on how they actually take these measurements. Thank you.
Okay, so here you guys see a high-level overview of the measurement system. It starts at the top right, where you have a client device. The client device makes a request to take an internet measurement against an internet measurement server. The server intercepts the request, processes it, runs the test, and sends back those results to the client device. And here you can see this is where we get our download, upload, and RTT metrics. Now, to dive a bit more into the client device, here you see that we're actually using a Raspberry Pi Model B+. It's running Balena OS, which is an operating system optimized for running Docker containers, which are great for IoT scenarios. You can see there are two main containers running: Balena's device supervisor and MIRC. Murakami is an open source application that we use to run our internet measurement tests. So when we get back those results, it's stored in a Google Cloud storage bucket, where it is then transferred to Google's BigQuery and can be visualized using either Google Data Studio or Google Sheets. Now, the device supervisor, that's responsible for communicating with Balena Cloud, which is the platform we use to match all of our Raspberry Pis. Here you can see the dashboard. You can see how much devices you have, whether those devices are online or not. You can also see more information such as the public private IP addresses, how much CPU is being used, etc. So with this client-side setup, we implemented our own version of the Neural pod. However, there were two main limitations we faced on this project. One of them being cost. There's cost with using Balena Cloud after you exceed the free tier of managing 10 devices. There's also this inherent reliance on Balena, which is a great product. However, it is a software run by a company. So for instance, in the future, if they decide to make any changes with the free tier, well, that will cause significant issues in the way that we manage our devices. So to counter these limitations, I was working on an alternative measurement system using mostly open source software. So here you can see instead of Balena, you can use Ubuntu 20.04. You can still use Google. They are very generous when it comes to their free tier. There are specific conditions, however, you will see that later on. Now, with respect to managing devices, there's this open source configuration management tool called Ansible, and you can use this to communicate with all of the Pis via the SSH protocol. With Ansible, you can do things like server provisioning, you can define test and deploy changes, as well as track those changes. Now, the last part is how you're going to monitor these devices. And to do so, the idea is to have another container running that can connect to our web app via the HTTPS protocol. And here you can see things such as device status, CPU usage, etc. Right? So now just to touch back on the internet measurements. Here you can see there's a number of tests that you can run to get the metrics that we want, which are download, upload, and RTT. You also see the measurement tool you can use to run these tests, as well as the organization that provides the tool. So here you can see also there are tests that are grayed out, and these are tests that that is provided with the tool, however, would not fulfill our purpose of getting the metrics we want. Right? So as I mentioned before, we use the Murakami tool, and the test that we focus on is NT7 test. And this is the same tool and test that the MIRC team uses. Now you hear a bit more about this in the following section, where I now pass you on to Jeremy Bosch.
Okay, so Daniel mentioned that we'd be using MLab's Murakami for the NDT7 test, but there are two parts to that. Let me explain a bit about MLab's implementation of their network diagnostic tool from both a client and server devices perspective. So the NDT7 test measures application level download and upload performance through a single stream TCP connection. MLab preferred a single stream approach for this test because it was more helpful for confirming performance issues along a single connection than a multi-stream test would. So overall, the NDT7 test works like this. A client device makes a request to the MLab server, and the connection must be authorized through the router and firewall settings on the server's network. Afterwards, a connection is established, and the NDT7 test running on the server assesses the upload and download speeds of the connection. When requested by the server, the client sends as many packets as possible to the server during a 10-second window And the total number of bytes received divided by the time window could be used to estimate the maximum rate at which the client can transmit data. In other words, its upload speed. In addition, the round-trip time for each packet is noted on the server, and at the end of the test, the minimum round-trip time recorded could be extracted. And a similar process occurs for download, except the server sends packets to the client to assess the rate at which the client can receive it. In other words, it's download speed. Now, in addition to the public NDT servers provided by MLab, they have also enabled individuals to set up their own NDT server through their open source GitHub repository. To set up a server involves allocating a device to host the NDT software, preferably a device on a different network to the client for performance reasons. Then you would install the necessary software to get the server up and running, such as the operating system, Docker to run the image, and optionally virtual machine software. And then you can clone the NDT software from the GitHub and run it in a Docker container. After the server is operational, it may be necessary for you to make security exceptions in the server's network to permit access by external client devices, such as what our team did. So in our case, we used port forwarding in the router on the server's network to allow access by external devices. Port forwarding in our router redirects traffic from one IP address and port to another. And here I have a simple illustration of how this works. Starting on the right of the diagram, our client device makes a request to the NDT server. The request is addressed to the public IP of the server's network. Now, normally the router would block all unsolicited connections. However, it's possible to make exceptions and pass the request onto a specific device on the server network. And we'll do this with port forwarding. The table at the bottom is an example of what a port forwarding table may look like. That's right, great. So yeah, this is the table here. So you can see it takes all requests that come in on a specific port, 30,000 in this case, and directs the traffic onto the device with the IP address 192.168.0.8. It forwards the traffic to port 8080, which happens to be the port that the NDT7 test is currently listening on. Now, when the request reaches the server's router, the request is passed along to the server and the test begins. Now, the main advantage for this method is its simplicity. The configuration can be done very quickly, and it's best suited for quick one-off tests or tests to one or a few private clients. And the reason for this is because of its drawbacks. Without a DNS or static IP, regular testing from clients may need attention, as in the event of a power outage or router reset, the internal IP addresses of the server may change, and you would have to update these in each of your client devices. Wi-Fi's greatest limitation is that open ports can be very dangerous. If malicious agents were aware of open ports on your network, then sensitive information on your network could be at risk. However, there are some measures that we can take to mitigate this risk, which my colleague Sajid will talk about next.
Thanks, Jeremy. So IP whitelisting is the one and only security measure we have in place to protect our server. Now, we are aware that there are a multitude of different technologies that exist that can potentially enhance the security of our server, but a lot of these options are quite expensive and we simply do not have the budget to utilize them. But if you know of any techniques, strategies, or even standards that you think we should employ, that are of course cost-effective and affordable, we would really appreciate any and all suggestions. So if you can, please let us know down in the chat, right? So how exactly does IP whitelisting work? So to start things off, let's take a look at our client, which is on the right side of this slide. So our client wants to assess the performance of their network. And they can do this, of course, by making a request to our server to perform an internet measurement. But here's the thing. Our client is on an internal network, and internal networks do not have access to the public internet. So what can they do? Well, the answer to that question is a router, and I've labeled on the slide as a client router. And the reason being is that this router is connected to the internet service providers or ISP's external network, which is accessible over the public internet. So basically, the client, they would forward all requests designated to the server to their router, which forwards their request to our server. You're probably wondering, what does this have to do with IP whitelisting? And I will get to that in a moment, but before that, the key takeaway here is that the client's request to the server will be labeled by the ISP's external address, which is 198.51.100.0, instead of the internal address of 192.168.0.2. Yeah. So now the router forwards a request from 198.51.100.0 to our server. And the server, of course, receives this request. But before it can administer a speed test, it needs to know if this IP address is in its IP whitelist table. So if this address is in the table, which corresponds to the first entry of the table, then the server will administer a speed test to the client. So now let's take a look at what happens when a client with an external address that is not in our server's whitelist table tries to access our server. And we can see on the slide that the external address of 203.0.113.0 is not in our whitelist table. And because this address is not there, our server will ignore the client's requests and will not respond with a speed test at all. So you're probably wondering, why is IP whitelisting useful? And the answer to that question is that if any unauthorized request that may impose harm to our server tries to access our server, then it will be rejected as its IP address is not allowed. All right. So now let's talk about data visualization. So we have employed two techniques for data storage and visualization, and I've labeled these as approaches 1 and 2. But simply put, approach 1 deals with the client-side storage and visualization, and approach 2 deals with the server-side storage and visualization. Now, these approaches have differences, which I will explain in a moment. But before that, approach 1, which is the client side, our pod, labeled as the MIRC pod, runs a Murakami client, which makes a request to our server to perform an NDT7 test, and then stores the test data onto a Google Cloud bucket, which can then be visualized using a Google Data dashboard. And for approach 2, which is the server side, whenever a client or all clients make a request to our server, the server will automatically upload all the client test data to a Dropbox storage, and using some Python processing and a graphing visualization library called Bokeh, which is B-O-K-E-H, we can graphically plot the test data. So again, there are some distinctions between approaches 1 and 2. And one major difference is that approach 1, which is the client side, captures test data at the application level, and approach 2, the server side, captures test data at the TCP level. And another thing you're probably wondering is, why does approaches 1 and 2 use different storage and visualization methodologies? Why didn't we use the same 2 methods? And the answer to that question is, of course, while Google's cloud services, while they are quite generous, they require a credit card, which I did not have access to. So instead, as a proof of concept, I've developed an alternative means using Dropbox and Python. All right. So now I'll hand you over to my colleague, Daniel John, who will walk you through the client side and server side results. So take it away, John.
Okay, so here you guys see some of the results we got from running the several tests against both public as well as our local server, highlighted here in red. So for instance, you can see here we ran tests against a server in Bogota, Colombia, against a server in Dallas, United States, and so on. So from these results, you can see that the download upload speeds tend to vary depending on the server. And this is what we expect, right? In the real world, we know that some servers are different distances, require more hops. Some network connections are more congested than others, leading to packet loss, and so on. Right? The important thing to note here is if this is what I expected. The thing is, my expected download speed that I expect from my ISP was 100 megabits per second. And from here, you can see that that's against the local and public servers, it did not meet this expectation. And this can be explained due to a client-side limitation, which is very important. With respect to the local server, though, in terms of the download speed, this download speed is resolved due to the server-side limitation, not client-side, right? Okay, so here you see some of the sample of data points we collected. So tests were run between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. as I determined this time period to be where my network will be most utilized and of most importance, right? And tests were run every 10 minutes to ensure we have a high granularity so we can see how our network is performing most of the time. So as you see, the download speeds results are relatively consistent. There are, however, a few outliers, and these are things to be really mindful of. You'd want to consistently test during these times to determine if this drop in service is a consistent phenomenon. And if it is, this is something to definitely rectify, right? It's important that you have a good level of service at all times. In terms of download speeds, again, we saw a similar pattern, the results being relatively consistent with very few outliers. We also got the RTT metrics, and here you can see the results for those, again, all being 20 milliseconds, which is really good given the distance our server is. So one important thing to note is that all of the data you've seen, all of the results, we're running the NT7 tests with the Raspberry Pi connected via Wi-Fi. And as I mentioned, there's a client-side limitation, which is that when performing downloads with the Raspberry Pi connected via Wi-Fi, the max that you can get is 45 megabits per second. However, Raspberry Pi users know that you can also connect via Ethernet. And here you can see the results are much more promising, right? So this is a clear indication of the client-side limitation, right? There's a difference between Ethernet and Wi-Fi. As Sajid mentioned, we also collected data on the server side, and here you can see some visualization for that. You see the average download and upload rate, as well as the minimum round-trip time for both download and upload tests. So now that you've seen this data, you're probably wondering, well, how is this useful? Who can use it? Well, first of all, consumers can use it to verify whether or not they're getting the speeds that they purchase for. Policymakers could use it to help encourage policy development to increase network resilience. Civil society and human rights activists can use it to assess the quality of internet services, for instance, in different regions, to determine whether one region is having a higher quality than another, and perform the necessary steps to bridge this gap. Right? Network operators and ISPs can use it to help determine where to provision infrastructure and services. National regulatory agencies can use it to help define the legal and operational environments. And researchers and instance engineers, of course, we can use it to better understand, to make improvements with our networks. So this is some of the main observations I saw from using this Raspberry Pi. The first one being is that it only uses about 28% of the CPU when running the Murakami test. However, when performing updates, it uses a significant 72% of CPU. And this is something to be really mindful of, because if you intend to use a lower-end device, you need to ensure it has enough compute power to handle updates. Because if you don't, this will cause significant maintenance issues. As I mentioned, the most significant challenge with the Raspberry Pi is that when connected via Wi-Fi, the max download speed that you can get is 45 megabits per second. And this wasn't just from running NT7 tests, but also Ookla speed tests determined this, as well as iPerf tests. Okay, Bash, you can talk about some server-side observations here.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. So one of the major limitations that we observed on the server side was the maximum measurable speed that the server could reach. So when we analyzed the results that we gathered, the maximum download speed that we measured was 26.2 megabits per second, with a maximum upload speed of 24.9 megabits per second. Now, using an Ookla speed test as a reference, the client device received a speed of around 41.7 megabits per second, which was a lot higher than what our local server measured. So to investigate the issue, I ran an Ookla speed test to assess the connection of the server itself and got 94 megabits per second down and 25 megabits per second up. If you recall that the NDT7 test operates by transmitting as many packets as possible between the client and server to assess the client's upload and download rates. However, this explanation is also constrained by the rate at which the server can send and receive data. So it was found that if the download speed of the client exceeds the upload speed of the server, the results will be limited by the smaller of the two. And the same applies for the client's upload and the server's download. To further test the limitation, I artificially limited the upload and download speed of the server to verify, and limiting it to around 10 megabits per second down and 5 megabits per second up showed the same trend as before. And the solution here is to ensure that the server, if you're setting up a local server, that the maximum throughput is always greater than the clients that you are trying to measure. So this here, the slide here is a summary of some of the considerations that we had. We spoke about some of these already, such as our usage of a consistent time frame and sampling strategy to ensure measurement integrity, the maximum server throughput and network interface, which limited the accuracy of some of the results we received. In terms of scalability, we are currently documented the expected time span for some of our selected data storage tools, such as Dropbox and Google Cloud. And we're also aware that Balena Cloud limits us to 10 devices on the free tier, which can be expanded with paid tiers. However, we try to minimize the cost of our overall implementation. Aside from the cost of the client and server devices, no additional costs were incurred as both of the storage methods we selected were free, with only Google Cloud Storage requiring a credit card to initially set up. But the maintainability of the system involves ensuring that any credit cards that you use are active and simply keeping the software up to date as MLab updates the NDT server on their GitHub repository. Now then, let's say you want to replicate this methodology or just read more about the procedure that we use. There is a guidebook which we are in the process of creating as part of the documentation process. And this guidebook outlines the setup and deployment strategies for both the client and server sides, with a well-constructed list of complementary measurement tools and platforms, as well as some sample results taken from our testing. Now, before we conclude, let's talk quickly about some of the recommendations from our findings. So work can be done on the server in the area of security by implementing additional features such as SSH tunneling or using reverse proxies to conceal the server. And in terms of hardware, your focus should be on ensuring that the server can meet the bandwidth of the clients that it's trying to measure. Daniel?
Yeah, in terms of the Raspberry Pi recommendations, the most important one is to ensure that you have a Pi that has enough capacity to accurately measure your network bandwidth. So for instance, a Pi that uses the 802.11 BGN protocol versus the .AC protocol. We know with BGN, the amount of throughput that you can measure is much lower. So this is something to be very mindful of. Another recommendation would be to implement some strategy to always stay within Google Cloud Storage free tier. And this can involve, for instance, deleting or storing all the data in an alternative storage option, such as a local hard drive or another cloud storage option, such as Dropbox. Right? In terms of future steps, I know there's already plans to conduct internet measurements at the Youth Intercostal campus. From there, we can conduct tests in Trinidad and then in the future in the wider Caribbean. Another step would be to not just analyze the performance from fixed, but also mobile connections. We'd also like to investigate into the other aspects of resilience. As Tyler mentioned, it's not just performance, but resilience encapsulates also security, infrastructure, and market readiness. So these are other things to investigate future. And that concludes our presentation. We'll now take any questions or comments. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for that informative session on internet resilience and, of course, re-emphasizing how important this is in times of emergency, disasters, corporate settings, or in a scenario as simple as when you're trying to upload a new TikTok vid or Instagram reel. The presenters, of course, for this session were the moderator Melissa Munoz-Suro, Daniel John from UE Caribbean ICT Research Program, Trinidad and Tobago, Jeremy Bash, Sajid Dan, and Tyler Sudat. At this time, we'd like to have you guys send in your questions. Our panelists are ready to engage you, so feel free to type those questions now and our panelists will respond. Okay, so at the moment we don't have any questions, but we will engage you guys if you have some questions in the near future. Right now, guys, however, we'd like to traverse into the Metaverse with Xavier Jean-Claire from Barbados and Lester Garcia of Meta Mexico. So we're looking forward to hearing from them.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be part of an event from CTU. I'm very glad to be here. I don't know if you want me to share my presentation or if that would be done directly. Okay, let me see. Okay, I'm going to share it here. Just a second. Yes, got it. Thanks. So hopefully everyone is able to see my screen. Please let me know if that's the case. Maybe through the message tool we have here in the platform. So let me start again. Again, I'm very happy to be here and have the opportunity to discuss with you. I think this is a great opportunity to not only talk about the future of the internet, but also how that relates to the future of the Caribbean, which is the young people, people who are now being part of these new developments, who want to be part of these new developments, to starting them, working on them, and being just the new generation that will build the internet of the future, which is, for us, in our view, what the metaverse is in essence. My name is Lester Garcia. I'm the head of connectivity policy for Latin and Caribbean here in Meta. And I want to share with you what we think will be the internet of the future, what we need to get there, and what benefits will it entail for the new generation, for the people in general. So everything started in a way when Mark Zuckerberg, our CEO and founder, made these comments. I don't know if you are able to see my slides, because I'm seeing me in the screen. So if anyone can let me know. Yes or no?
Yeah, I'm seeing the slides.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So as you can see, Mark mentioned this when we started turning and walking towards this new future, which is the metaverse. He said, the metaverse will provide a persistent, synchronous environment where people can be together, a hybrid between the social platforms that we see today, but an environment where you're embodied in it. And it's going to be accessible to all current platforms and to all current devices. And not only that, we are also expecting to have new devices, which will be the way we will access this new internet. And what he's trying to say here, if we want to go through the words, is just that it's the new generation of the internet. Of course, young people, they are digital natives. They were born with iPads and iPhones all around. For us, having here for a longer time, we saw how the internet evolved from bulletin board systems in the 80s to dial-up in the 90s to fixed broadband, mobile broadband now. And what would be the next step? Precisely, that's what the metaverse is: a new internet, more immersive, with opportunity to have better communication and synchronization between people, activities, business, and social networks, of course. Much has been discussed about what exactly is the metaverse, or what we will be seeing in the metaverse. First of all, let me go back to what I just mentioned. This is going to be the next generation of the internet, the future of the internet, and it's going to be completely accessible to everyone through all devices. Of course, with the evolution of technology, we're expecting to have new devices that will give us a better perspective on this, into this new internet, into this new world. So just to have this example, we're seeing here in the slide a path, a road, where there's a truck heading somewhere. And if we understand this to be reality, what we can expect of the different layers of immersion that we will see in the metaverse. This is, for instance, augmented reality, information overlaid in the screen, whatever the screen will be of the devices we use. Of course, mobile phones, of course, computer platforms, but also new devices as intelligent glasses, goggles, etc. And virtual reality would be, as this example shows, let's say this enhanced environment, enhanced landscape, and enhanced vehicle, etc., which would give us a sense of its relationship with video games. But that's not the only application, as we know, and that's perhaps the first thought we have when we talk about virtual reality, but it's certainly not the only application. It's certainly not the only benefit that the new internet through virtual reality will grant us. The metaverse is then the new generation of internet. It's a place for developers and creators to offer new experiences. This is what we have today. This is if any of you guys have been into our Horizons or any other of our platforms inside Quest operating system, Quest 2 system, you will have seen something like this. And that's what we think the new internet will offer. Embedded and link immersive content, stories to be told, social interaction through avatars, through representations of ourselves, collaboration, training, learning, and venues or spaces for different activities that will be performed. And I want to insist.
Lester?
Yes?
Yeah, if you are progressing your slides, we're not seeing your progressing slides.
Oh,
maybe you
yeah,
need to put your presentation in presentation mode. Because you're not in presentation mode at the moment.
Let me see if can you see it? See the progression now?
Right.
Okay, sorry. So okay, I'm going back a bit very fast. Okay, so this is what this is the text that I repeated that I read that Mark made when we started pivoting towards the metaverse. A very fast example of augmented reality in virtual reality overlaid over the physical world, and a screen of what we can see in our app in Quest 2 Horizons, and as this plays this let's say gate towards the metaverse. So what we think the metaverse will be is something we need to build all together. These are apps, as Facebook in its time was an app, and Instagram, etc., and they moved from web pages to mobile apps. We are in transit towards this new world where we don't have a lot of the answers. We will be building together with the industry, with community, with the people, with, of course, the new generations of what this new internet would be. But let me give you some pointers of what we think that it is, or where we are trying to take it as we think it's the appropriate path to start. First of all, Meta is moving just from being let's say a company that provides platforms and applications through the internet to be a company that also creates the devices that will take us to this new internet. Not only we are creating devices, but we are also working on giving creators and developers the tools they need to create this. So now in the market, of course, you know, it's Quest 2. The Quest 2 goggles are available in many countries, which is the way that today people are accessing this first generation of the metaverse. We have some other devices as Portal, which are communicating devices which were very useful during the pandemic, and now they are transiting towards being communications for business and commercial applications. We have this augmented reality platform for creators, Spark AR, and as some of you may know, we partnered with Ray-Ban to create this first generation augmented reality glasses, which are the Ray-Ban stories. And we're creating more stuff, and you will see it in due time. But I think the important thing here is that the things we are creating are following the path of what we think would be this new internet. Again, more immersion, open to everybody, as it is the internet, the opportunity for interaction between technologies, the opportunity to use technology to be more interactive between these new realities in our own body, as this graph, this picture can make you figure. Those are things that will be coming in the future, trying to make this new virtual reality more useful and more close to the public, to people. So first, what are the characteristics of the metaverse? I think this is very important. Again, this is something we are creating as an industry, as an ecosystem, as a community of ICT folks. It's not only a creation of the company, it's not, of course, not only something that Meta will be doing by itself, but if we go back and see what the internet is, or what we build the internet to be, what we want the metaverse to be. First, it needs to be open. This is not a private, or this will not be a private community or a private internet. This has to be as open as the internet is today. So all devices should have access, should be accessible in any way that its technology can provide. Everyone should be able to enter as everybody is able to get into the internet. And rules and the way we build it is something we need to decide as a society, as a community. It should be interoperable. That means there should be not exclusivity between devices or operating systems. Again, people that have been here for some time, we saw the evolution of the operating systems in the mobile world. This is my personal view, is that perhaps we will see something like that in the metaverse, but the bottom line is that these operating systems that we see today in the mobile world, if this replicates in a sense that there are also a number of operating systems in the future for the metaverse, that they will have access or will grant access to all apps, services, etc., to the users of the different operating systems and hardware that there will be in this near future. It will be immersive in the sense that this augmented and virtual reality, what we call mixed reality, will not only take us to these new virtual worlds, but will also we will be capable to have more information and a more clear and broad view of our surroundings through the different overlays that this technology will create. So again, mixed reality would be a combination of augmented reality, virtual reality for offering more information, better services, and giving people the capability of using these services for its benefit. Imagine just the case of real-time translation in a conference like this one through Google's, through a software, through applications, which we know it's possible now. It's not there yet commercially or broadly, but this is the kind of applications that we're thinking, different overlays over our reality that will grant us a better use of the internet. Of course, this should be a safe space. We're very much aware of the difficulties that have been around the current internet regarding safety of children, of people in general, of finances, etc. And we need to make the metaverse a safe place. And we will work with society to do that. So what's our vision? What we expect? Again, the metaverse is a new internet. It's the new generation of internet. It's not a service only. It's not a commercial brand. It's not only something we got out from a book. It's a name let's say the industry has given to this new generation of the internet. What do we expect? As I just mentioned, new application, new services, and certainly something around operating systems that would be interoperable and that will offer the opportunity to transit from one metaverse to the other, just as we do today from one app to the other or web page to the other. These opportunities, this new internet will also create a new economy, an economy that will provide opportunities for entrepreneurs, jobs, etc., and for countries to grow and to create jobs. We're talking about this new virtual economy through inside the metaverse, inside the internet. As we have today e-commerce, we will transit also to virtual goods economy, avatars, NFTs, digital twins for industrial applications, etc. This is the opportunity of reducing distances as the internet does today, but with the possibility of having better immersion interaction between individuals for obtaining information, training, education, etc. So bottom line, this is a discussion and an event of the new generations and how they will see and how they will use this to create the future of the economy of our region, of the Caribbean and of the globe as a whole. So I'm certain you are interested in knowing what are ideas around what this will entail for young people, for the new generation, for the new users or current users, which will be in the job market or in the development market, entrepreneurs of the next years. First of all, as I mentioned, the metaverse will keep us communicated and informed in a better way. We're talking about immersion that will allow us to be communicated in real time in a way that we sense that we are there with the people we love, with the people we care, or with the people we need to be for business, for other transactions, etc. This is a very economic term, but that I like to use because it very clearly states what this is about. Transaction cost reduction. What I mean here is transaction costs in economics is very easy. It's just the cost of doing anything. Whatever we do has a cost. If we are planning on doing a business and we need to meet with people in another part of the world, part of the transaction cost will be to pay for airfare, hotels, etc. It's not only the case of that we'll be traveling less or that many conferences will be hybrid as the one we are having, is that the technology, as it has been always, will reduce costs for the economy and for society. So the metaverse as the next generation of the internet will reduce costs further to benefit society. For our new generations, which will be seeking education at the highest levels and trainings in new technologies, in computing, in coding, etc. The metaverse will grant, or the new internet will grant access to the best experiences, to the best educators and universities, as they have been doing now through a lot of content that they provide even freely, but we are talking about the possibility of interacting in a very close way with the scholars, the creators, the best in the world available to everyone who has a connection to the new internet. Certainly, this new economy, not only in the part of the real economy, well, the economy is called the real economy, which is, the manufacturing and production of goods and services, which we know it's going to be very much benefited through the new devices, the manufacturing of new devices, new services, etc. That's a very important part. The need for programming, coding, engineers, developers, policy people, of course. The metaverse would entail much more interaction between people, which will generate the need for rules and standards that which will make everyone happy and safe using these services. And the other part is the virtual economy, where I just mentioned virtual services, virtual goods, all of these that the immersive internet will give us as digital twins, NFTs, etc. And of course, business opportunities. I will think in the future we will see new unicorns and new developments, companies, projects coming. Of course, why not from the Caribbean, from young people from the Caribbean who will have now the access to all these global markets, not only for finance, but also for being able to offer their products, generating new devices, new applications, and a next generation of e-commerce, not only because of the NFTs and other virtual goods, but because of the way we can use these technologies for further immersion. And of course, the creation of content. Content is king, as we know, and greater immersion and greater interaction only means the need for more content, for people to be able to access that content. We will need a new economy that will make this available as well. Just to finish my presentation, something that is very relevant is, okay, the metaverse sounds fantastic, sounds very interesting, is the new generation of the internet, and seeing it that in that way, that would mean that we will eventually come independently of what we do or not do. That might not be necessarily the case. We have considered, or we consider that there's a track, a path we need to transit towards the metaverse, to get to the metaverse. And that has a lot to do with policy, with business, with society. First, and from a connectivity standpoint, we need metaverse-ready networks. And this is a very important part. We're talking about a lot of content, interaction, immersion, that requires renderization, digitalization, a lot of computer power, of course, a lot of network capacity. So we need to define what are the characteristics of metaverse-ready networks. Do we have it in the region? What do we need to get them? How can we get there? So characteristics and conditions. Policy, of course, is important. We need authorities, industry, society to commit to promote and create the appropriate environment for the metaverse to be built. We need the appropriate spectrum policy decisions. We need the appropriate regulatory decisions that would incentivize synergies between telcos, vendors, and OTTs. I think this is very relevant to say. Even though we are all competitors in a level, synergies and the creation of an ecosystem will only mean benefits to all participants. Telcos, vendors, and OTTs can benefit from this new internet. And instead of discussing and competing on who should pay what and who is responsible for what, we should see and look forward to this future where the synergies will create the real business opportunities. And of course, technical resources needed for this to be a reality, and the policy rules, privacy, data protection, etc., that we need for the metaverse to be a safe place. In that regard, we need to truly create a metaverse ecosystem. Again, I want to be very clear on this. This is something we need to construct, something we need to build between telcos, vendors, OTT, society, academia, governments. Everybody has a part in this, just as everybody built the internet we are enjoying today. So if we need to get to this new internet to benefit from all the good things that it can entail and avoid the threats that it could mean, we need to build together this new ecosystem. Thank you very much. As always, a pleasure to participate with CTU.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I hope we're all doing well. Thank you again for the CTU for putting on such an initiative and for the 18th anniversary. Again, I'm Xavier Jean-Claire. I'm a marketing and design consultant. Today, I will be sharing with you on a journey into the metaverse, basically. If I can just share a screen and get the ball rolling. So I'm quite glad for Lester's presentation. It was very informative, and I hope to continue what he's just shared with you. I'm going to be focusing on the creator economy, otherwise known as the orange economy, and what we can leverage via the blockchain. I'll also go into detail on some pathways that we can take in terms of the careers if you're interested in being a part in working in the metaverse. Since we are going to be focusing on digital assets, I do have to spend some time on intellectual property ownership and its importance. And of course, I'm going to share some personal design processes so that you can see what's happening under the hood
and you can then attempt on your own some of the same processes that I have here. Of course, since we are dealing with a new virtual world, we have to consider branding as well as e-tourism. So I'm going to talk a bit about that. So first of all,
Xavier, I don't think your slides are showing us yet.
They're not.
Screen is showing that you started screen sharing, but nothing has it.
Let me restart this. All right, you could inform me if you can see.
No, we're still getting that black screen saying that you are screen sharing.
Okay, 1 second. Let me see if I can change some settings quickly. All right, let's try this again. How are we?
Yeah.
Yes.
That would have been.
I'm seeing a hand.
Audio visual issues on my end. So yes, the 5 areas I'm looking at: creator economy, some career pathways as well, the value of intellectual property ownership, as well as some design processes. And then we'll take a little glimpse at branding and e-tourism. Now, since we are going to be focusing on the creation of these digital assets, the orange economy, where we have our cultural practitioners, persons who highlight heritage, history, culture of who we are, in particular as a Caribbean nation, as member states of the CIGF. And through the blockchain, we then have the ability to leverage income earning potential of the ideas and the creations that we add to our societies around us. This does include, and is not limited to, photography, graphic design, fashion, filmmaking, video game design, and much more. Even documents as well. As long as you can create a digital asset, then you can mint it on your blockchain. Now, this does include NFTs. I'm going to look a bit more at IP ownership later, and we are focusing on the content that and the ability of creating this content, what we can do with it. Ultimately, we can grow the metaverse through sharing of experiences that identify who we are. Taking a look at NFTs, now they're basically, again, digital assets that exist on the blockchain that you and I, every person, has access to, right? The benefit of these assets is that they're not interchangeable with fiat currency, so you can kind of consider them as digital gold as they act in their own right financially. Now, they do encompass 2D, 3D artworks, avatars, digital replicas of designs of any sort. They can also include music, audio, documents that you create, photos, animations, video. Off, you have the ability of minting onto the blockchain. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go too much into marketplaces and the smart contracts, but just getting you guys acclimatized to what these digital assets are. In front of you, I have a series of NFTs, images, and a video, as you see, of a 3D design I have. On the bottom left, we have what are referred to as POAPs, proof of attendance protocols, that basically verify someone has attended an event. It could be a seminar, it could be a workshop. You could consider using these for certifications for education even, right? This will then prove to potential employers your background in the environment of the blockchain and Web3. Aside from that, you can create some 3D models, which then brings me to the career pathways that we can all take, the prospective jobs that you and I have access to. You can take the path of being a 2D and a 3D artist, where you conceptualize and create models and designs for brands, for yourself, for the metaverses that we can engage with. We are also going to need game developers, persons who can code, program, who can design scripts that communicate within themselves and to persons that engage the platforms, these virtual platforms. Lester mentioned quite a bit on VR and AR. We'll take a look at that today as well too. So we will need persons who can engineer the software, develop the software, test it, run sample tests, and get it out to market. Of course, we'll need product managers to handle the workload of these intangible assets that we create, these intangible experiences that we create. And then, of course, the hardware that is going to basically allow for these platforms to be built. We will need persons who can service and maintain, install, and even design and create the GPUs, the type of hardware we will need to run these visuals. If you're into marketing, digital marketing, then I do suggest you spend some time in the Metaverse experience, as you will be able to translate a lot of these skill sets that you have been utilizing, I imagine, for the social platforms, the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, etc. As a matter of fact, I will highlight the fact that in order to fully understand, well, or rather to start getting the grasp, not to fully understand, start getting the grasp of the initial steps into the metaverse, you will need to understand Web 2, which are the social platforms that we currently engage with, and understand why the blockchain and why Web 3 is providing these solutions. Now, with creation of digital assets, it's important that we take a look at the intellectual property, as generally the definition of intangible intellectual property is intangible assets that are owned and legally protected without any outside use or implementation, without the consent of the business or the owner of said property. These will include your copyrights, your trademarks, your patents, as well as your trade secrets. So anything that you can create, any ideas, you have the ability to place them into this Web3 metaverse environment and have them verified on an immutable ledger, which is the blockchain. Immutable being that it can't be changed. So it will be persistent in that regard. Now, through things such as recipes, food recipes, for instance, we can get an idea that the value of knowing the recipe for KFC or the value of knowing the recipe for Chefette will give you a competitive advantage in whatever market you're engaging with. So the value of the ideas from our creator economy or orange economy, the persons that are creating these audio-visual immersive experiences will continue to rise with more opportunities for them to be showcased, for nations to showcase themselves in this culturally diplomatic platform, right? Which then means that these digital assets, then these experiences can then be licensed, sold, and assigned as the creator or as the owner of said content in a wide range of cases with no limits of the physical bounds of your own state or your own country. Now I'm going to share some personal design processes that I have taken. And I think Mr. Garcia Lester might like this, as it does highlight one of the platforms, Spark AR. But my first step is the creation of the 3D model. So in front of you, I have a visualization of a windmill. This is based on the Morgan Lewis Mill in Barbados. And Blender is a open source, free to use software that I recommend you download. If you're new to 3D design, it may take a little bit of it may be a little bit of a learning curve, but I can guarantee that it is worth it because it will then allow you to create experiences, as you see. So just an example, a proof of concept of how you can take your 3D models and apply them into an augmented reality experience. I personally am trying to take a cultural position where we can get to highlight who we are as a nation, what we have to offer in terms of our history, in terms of our heritage. Our unique identity is embedded in the music, the dance, the visuals, the sculptures, our Caribbean persona, right, our society. So there are ways of communicating this through art, through media, to the audiences that are going to engage in these metaverses. Right, so Spark AR, again, is a free to use open source software by Meta that you can easily access from the site. And they do have quite a few lessons that you can follow, instructions that you can follow. I will not say that 3D platforms are easy to get accustomed to, but once you get the hang of it, once you get into the groove of editing, of manipulating things in a 3D space, a lot of them are synonymous with each other. A lot of them basically do the same thing. So I do recommend spending some time with Spark AR because you'll be able to publish your effects to platforms such as Instagram and Facebook. There are other platforms such as Snap AR as well that will take you to Snapchat. They have a pretty thriving creator economy, so I do recommend checking them out if that is what you're interested in. And if you're looking for heavy lifting, then Unreal Engine 5 and Unity are two platforms that you can download to take on some more heavy duty type AR and VR experiences. So if you are a creator using Spark, you will connect your account and you will have a dashboard as you see. If you're into digital marketing, this is gold because it will tell us how the effects are performing over time. We will have the ability to monitor how our AR effects are shared. So I do recommend experimenting with that. As you see, I do have a QR code. So if you have your phones available, I will give you about a few seconds to scan the QR code that's right here. And you can try out the AR effect for yourself to see proof of concept, but to get an idea of what is possible using the Spark AR Hub. I'll give a few seconds for that, and then I'll move on. All right, so I know that we have quite a few persons in the tech field. Scanning the QR code should be pretty simple, right? Okay, so we're gonna move on then. Now, when we want to talk about branding, we could also highlight e-tourism. And this term I would like to define as the virtual interaction of persons seeking destinations. We have the ability to highlight our culture, our music, our dance, our visual arts, our events, our workshops, our information that we share in the schools, right? We have the ability to share this on a global scale through these virtual environments, right? So this in itself acts as a device of drawing persons' interests, of generating interest in traveling to the destination based on what they experience. We have to be constant to require, we're still going to require the social interaction of being in person, but with things like augmented reality, we can augment, we can add on to what we share, right? When we're bored of that, we can take a break in solitude and check out a virtual world on a legacy device, such as your mobile screen, or Decentraland, which is free to access. You just need a blockchain wallet, MetaMask. I do recommend using MetaMask. Once you have access to that, you can access it easily. Okay. The ecosystem of Decentraland is filled with NFTs, co-ops, and is basically run by a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. Basically, we, as the persons who engage in the ecosystem, have the ability to vote on what actually happens in the ecosystem. So this leverages, this gives more strength to the community and what they would like to see happening in this space. Mana is the currency of Decentraland, so I do recommend checking that out, as there are some prospects for this platform to continue to surge in popularity. It has been one of the leading platforms in terms of virtual engagements especially during the pandemic. I think another competitor would be the Sandbox, which I do recommend checking out as well. And notably, these worlds basically allow for diplomatic cultural exchange. Basically, we can offer the best of the best in terms of our culture, in terms of how we communicate the culture without misunderstanding, without miscommunication through this format. So this ultimately will provide us with a new domain of communication, a new domain of networking. This is basically the virtual website, if you want to look at it in that regard, but ultimately a virtual domain for interaction and immersion. So I've spent some time in the Decentraland platform, and here are some examples. Prime example, this Dragon City that you see on the left, I think we all can gather what art style this is based off. And I believe that we as member states, we can communicate this virtual identity as well, not just in Decentraland, but in the multitude of other metaverses that will become, right? Horizon Worlds, VR chat, there's quite a few out there available. Right? In terms of how we're going to identify our avatars in the space, I urge you to find ways to communicate your cultural identity, right? Through wearables, through structures, through designs, through 3D models that can be embedded into the ecosystem. Here we have Blender on the left, and I would have used Decentraland has a browser-based platform to upload and edit their objects. Now, just going to talk briefly about how you can brand yourself in the metaverse. An example being Nike, who would have partnered with RTFKT in December of 2021. Their aim was to share Western urban culture, merge it with gaming, and present to the audience a new experience, an innovative experience, something that sets them apart from the market in a very unique way. They're currently still leading as one of the virtual providers of virtual wearables. And I do believe they recently released crypto kicks, which are designs of their shoes going for 2.9 Ethereum, which is basically around $8,500 US. In terms of Decentraland, there has been some virtual real estate sold. There is a group called the Metaverse Group who would have purchased just over 600,000, a plot for 600,000, which basically comes up to over just under 2.5 million US at the time. So you can kind of gather an idea how much value these corporate entities are starting to place, how much value the artists and the creatives are starting to invest in the space, right? Based on these numbers. Again, with virtual real estate, you have the ability to showcase events, clothing, workshops, elements of e-tourism as well, because the space generally will empower the consumer and give the brands greater opportunities to be creative and be innovative with their positioning, right? Just checking my time to ensure I'm doing good. Here are a few examples of augmented and virtual immersive experiences. Nike is the one you see in the top middle. There are quite a few avenues for e-commerce where you can offer virtual wearables that persons can scroll through and try on at home. There are a lot of businesses out there that have started this process. In terms of development, you may have to look into creating an app for such, but the tools are there: Unreal Engine, Blender, Spark AR, Snap AR, the list goes on. So I believe I'm coming up to the end. In terms of getting into the metaverse, entering the metaverse, I do recommend you spend some time with the current platforms, get some level of mastery, because what happens is that you will realize that there's certain shortcomings of Web 2 that Web3 can cater for, being the leveraging the creator economy, giving equity to those who add to the platform rather than just engaging with the platform. We have the ability to shift from an information age to a knowledge age, where persons are actually communicating their knowledge about subjects, and then the community is basically voting on the value of this knowledge, right? If you're looking to take a creator route, then you do want to master, at least get an understanding of 2D and 3D models, some of the design tools and software, and then the processes that you will need to take. You will need to go through a few platforms of software to create a few of these immersive engagements. I do recommend that you highlight elements of culture, your history, trends in your society, trends in the market, if you're going to be creating, and then also to focus on the target audience, because you have to spend time communicating to your consumer. Put yourself in the shoes of the consumer, ask yourself what you would want in their place, do some analysis, some trend analysis as well, and that should give you an idea of how to share or what types of experiences to start to develop for your audiences. That ultimately brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you again for spending time with me, and I hope I've contributed in some way. If there are any questions, do feel free. You can also reach out to me at phoenixcreativeconsulting@gmail.com. If you have any questions about AR, VR applications and processes, I'd be glad to help in any way. And again, thank you to the CTU for putting on this initiative.
Thank you so much to Xavier, Jean-Claire, and of course, Lester Garcia for that insightful look into the metaverse. We have a few questions lined up for our speakers who are eagerly waiting to engage you. So let's jump straight into our questions. Our first question is from Antonio de Turville, who's asking the question for MIRC. What would be the benefits to Caribbean governments to perform download and upload speed analysis on their own in-country networks? Would you say that there are potential entrepreneurial opportunities in that area as well? We'd invite our panel to give a response on this.
Very interesting question. I mean, I would say that certainly business opportunity in there, because even though there are developed networks in the region, in the Caribbean, we certainly think that more infrastructure is going to be needed. For the first part of the question, actually, that's the main question. This is something that we are still discussing as of today. What are the characteristics and the conditions that we need for these new networks? There's not an answer per se. This is something we're starting to research with vendors, with other networks, etc. Certainly, governments should be part of these discussions as well. So I couldn't say what the authorities in the Caribbean should do, but I'm certain that we need to start checking on the characteristics of our networks and what we will need for the metaverse to be a reality. Speaking of connectivity and connectivity infrastructure, the bottom line is industry per se still doesn't know exactly what we need. That's a question we would, as an industry, as an ecosystem, will have an answer for in the following months. So I think I will be in a better position to answer that perhaps at that time.
And Anna, Jeremy Bash also had a response in the chat to that question. Jeremy Bash from MIRC. I can read it. He thanked Antonio for the question. He said, may be of interest to Caribbean governments to ensure that their population is well connected because of the growing reliance on the internet and so on. And he's suggesting that by assessing their download and upload speeds, they can identify the need for additional infrastructure outside of private ISPs, and there may be room for potential entrepreneurial opportunities through the collaboration between private ISPs and governments to set up infrastructure and provide reliable service to customers and businesses. So he thinks there could be some policy input there as well.
So I have a question coming out from Stephen Cool, who is asking this question to Daniel, John, and the team. He's saying, is there an application to facilitate the stats from the measurement? One, so we could probably deal with that one first. Is there an application to facilitate the stats from the measurement?
If I understand this correctly, well, currently, we don't have an application that publicly shows all of the stats. However, this could be done for future work. The idea would be to have some application that features a dashboard and displays all the stats. Actually, I think we can use Google Data Studio application that I mentioned to show the visualizations. However, I think, however, you have a lot more flexibility and it will be better user interface and experience.
Okay, thank you. So Stephen is also asking for the IP whitelisting. If an attacker is within an IP whitelisted router, could they technically get access to the servers?
Sajid, you want to answer this or you want to go?
I'll take this one. So yeah, if an attacker's IP address is in the whitelist table, then they can gain access to the server if they are able to bypass the server's firewall. But as Jeremy mentioned, our server is recommended for one-off and private tests to trusted clients, right?
Okay. And number 3, are there any plans on using machine learning with the data gathered?
So currently, there are no plans to use machine learning with the current data collect. We are aware that we can use this technology, for instance, to get some predictive insights in network performance. But still, this is something that we would really need to investigate to determine whether or not all of this analysis would be useful and meaningful, you know, whether to use machine learning or not.
Okay.
But
thank you so much, Daniel.
Yeah,
thanks to Daniel and the team for answering that one. We also have a question for Xavier. Xavier, Deidre Williams is asking, one of the social problems to come out of the internet is the physical and mental separation of individuals, of course, loneliness, mental health issues. A comment on the metaverse and how this plays a role?
So ultimately, by adding immersive experiences that persons can engage with, the idea is that the metaverse will bridge a gap that is not filled. We've seen during the pandemic how we've had to interact much more online through Zoom, through gaming for those who would have engaged, through a variety of mediums. So there is a requirement for when persons would like to take a break from certain elements, when persons want to engage in society in a different aspect. I think that it basically will come down to preference of what you will choose to do and what you will choose to do with the metaverse experience. But ultimately, it is a method of bridging that gap to fill the connections that we share with our friends, our relatives, distant cousins, businesses across the world. Quite a few scenarios in terms of filling the gap. I hope this answers.
Okay, Xavier, so you would probably suggest that moderation is key.
Of course, with everything in life, moderation is key. If you take things to extreme, you will bear the brunt of such extreme scenarios. So definitely everything in moderation.
Okay, thank you so much, Xavier. Deidre is also asking, how does a blockchain sticker prove that you attended? How does blockchain work with existing registries of copyright, trademarks, etc.?
All right, so as it relates to registries, copyrights and trademarks, our local laws, I don't think we are recognizing them as yet. But in terms of the blockchain sticker, which I imagine is the POAP, the proof of attendance protocol or proof of ownership for the general NFTs, let us remove this visual of JPEGs of cartoon monkeys. Let's remove that for a second and think about what's actually happening on the infrastructure, being that this digital asset is tokenized. If you're in tech, then you know a token stands for an element of something that we are working on or crafting on our devices. So therefore, this tag basically will help to identify in a digital realm who you are, what you do on the platform as well, in ways that having a physical ticket or physical sticker will not be able to. I'm not sure if, well, I'm certain persons would have bought tickets online for events that they would go to in person, where they would show the pass on their phone, maybe a QR code. What if we start to minimize the need for these physical interactions where persons just walk in because they have been verified, right? Through the use of this token ID, persons will have the convenience of such. So it may be a more utopian perspective on what we can do as a society and what we can do using the tech. But ultimately, the convenience of not having to deal with physical reproductions of documents, right, of assets, even certain amounts of fiat coin, but that's another discussion. So I hope that answers the blockchain sticker. You have to ignore the visual. If you like NFTs and props for the visuals, by all means, support the artists. At the end of the day, that is still supporting the creative economy. But then you can also consider what having this tag, this hash, this token ID will grant you access to. If you think about making financial transactions, you're basically creating a transaction on a ledger, right? That can be altered. On the flip side, you have blockchain, which cannot be altered so easily, right? It's immutable. So here is where the potential and the possibilities of having your work, having your engagements, your immersions, your digital assets on the blockchain lie. I hope that answers the blockchain sticker question. And in terms of the copyrights and trademarks, that is something that I personally would like to have some answers to. So do feel free to hit me up if anyone has clarifications.
Okay, Xavier, well, we still have you here. Sherwin Reed is asking, have you heard about Eon XR for 3D modeling? If so, what are your opinions about the platform?
So I have definitely heard of Eon XR, taken a glimpse at it. I think that Eon XR is a fantastic tool to embed into our educational systems in the way that we can share experiences. I remember sciences. I was not so great with sciences. So chemistry, I feel as though if I were to have a periodic table in front of me that I could interact with, that would basically give me dialogue on each of the elements, I would have been able to pass CXC chemistry, right? So that was one of the courses I dropped. But I found that there are other ways that you can apply these platforms. With the same Eon XR, you can look to the medical field as well, where persons can review models, interact with sections of anatomy as well. Anatomy is something that can be quite difficult to teach without certain tools. So these platforms like Eon XR are basically going to provide us with another means of communicating this knowledge visually, audio, through our ears as well, in a way that just looking at a screen, sitting down behind a computer will not, right? The fact that you can engage with models, shift them in a 3D space, change their look, change the scale, you can skew them, alter them, you can really get detailed, as long as the artwork is very detailed, which comes down to, again, the creative economy, but you can get very detailed in how you communicate your information. Geography as well. Since we're looking at climate sustainability, we can actually start to consider running sample tests of 3D models of our coastlines and doing periodic tests to see how shifts would occur on our coastlines based on the storms that are intended to come our way. I know that we have a few storms coming this week. So imagine we had a 3D model that would give us a more accurate representation of what happens with weather changes. And this is something that, this is a field that requires continuous development as well. So just getting your feet wet is an immense start in terms of how we can use these platforms like St. Eon XR to communicate through education, through healthcare, even through construction. You could have remote work where persons are engaging on site with a virtual setup process. They have a pump that they're installing. The pump has dialogue accompanying it, as well as pointers that indicate the direction, the placement, how to install these things as well. So I do think that these platforms will continue to showcase means of improving how we do work, how much more efficient we can become, and how much we can contribute into the global GDP, right? I hope that answers the question.
Thanks so much, Xavier, and thank you once again to all of our speakers. Guys, it's time for a 15-minute coffee break again, but hang tight because you're going to be entertained. Who wants to play some word scramble? We're going to play some games again. So just click on the Partners tab located at the top of your screen to view the Internet Governance and Partner booths. Hidden in the virtual booths of this week's events and partners are some letter cards. So once you guys locate all the letters, form the word, and head on over to the engagement page where you'll find all the contests available for the week. Submit the word in the word scramble contest for today. The first person who correctly submits the word will win a US $50 Amazon gift card. This game is going to be open for only 10 minutes. So head on over there now and play our game of word scramble because it's going to be so much fun. And we're going to catch you guys after the coffee break. I'm DJ Anna. We'll be right back here on CIGF. Welcome back, ladies and gents. I'm DJ Anna. Before we introduce our next speaker, we are pleased to announce the winners of the Word Scramble and the In It to Win It quiz. Drum roll, please. The winner of the Word Scramble is Shahrukh Hussain. Shahrukh, you have won yourself a $50 Amazon gift card. So congratulations to you. And the winner of the In It to Win It quiz is Renasha Kassar. She has won herself a $100 Amazon gift card. Congratulations to the winners and thank you guys for playing. Let's continue this afternoon's proceedings, guys. I'd like to invite right now Mr. Albert Daniels, once again, the Senior Manager Stakeholder Engagement of ICANN, who is, of course, going to enlighten us on careers in Internet governance. Hi, Mr. Daniels.
Good afternoon, Anna, and thank you so much for that introduction. And while the tech team gets my slides up on the screen, I just want to say how impressed I was with those presentations by the young people earlier on.
Definitely, me too.
Listening to those presentations actually turned my own presentation upside down because I can now use their presentation as a tangible way of showing how young people can get into internet governance on the basis of actually being involved in some kind of technical or other activity.
Yes,
So
they definitely enlightened us with a whole new perspective.
Exactly. Thank you so much. So I will jump right into it and indicate that for the young people who are actually watching today, I don't want you to concentrate too much on the specifics of what I'm about to say, but rather concentrate a little bit more on the approach that I will be trying to communicate to you that you can use to get involved in careers in internet governance. Now, what we saw earlier on today with these presentations is that there are technical aspects of development that can actually lay a very strong and solid foundation for careers in internet governance. I remember the CEO of the organization that I work for, Fadi Chehadi, used to say that when he tried to explain to his wife what he does in internet governance, he was never able to put it in a straightforward way so that she could understand what this internet governance thing is all about. So I'm going to try to see how far I can get in explaining to young people how they can get involved in internet governance and what route they can actually take. So we've seen this definition many times today, this definition indicating what internet governance is all about. And essentially what we are looking at is a situation where different types of stakeholders, governments, the private sector, civil society, and the technical community all come together in their particular areas of focus and determine what policies related to the internet are going to be. And one institute which has put a lot of focus into this is the Internet Governance Project, which actually is being run at Georgia Tech. Now, I invite young people who are actually following this program to go to internetgovernance.org, where they will find all of the information that they need to on the Internet Governance Project. However, to be specific, the Internet Governance Project is actually one of the leading sources of independent analysis of global internet governance. In other words, this particular project is the place to go for any young person wanting to understand internet governance better and learn how they can actually get involved in internet governance as a career. Now, internet governance is a different kind of career to your typical accounting or legal or so on. You don't pick up your briefcase and walk into an internet governance company, but rather you interact and engage in internet governance structures which may be local or in many cases are actually international. And the Internet Governance Project conducts scholarly research to produce policy analysis and public comments. And that is a very important term in the field of internet governance, public comments. In internet governance fora like the IGF and like ICANN, what happens is that future policy is discussed, and this is where the policies that will determine the kind of internet that we have actually developed. And understanding how policy is developed and coming up with substantive policies that will give us the kind of internet that we want is what internet governance is all about. So this particular project, the Internet Governance Project, brings its ideas directly to internet governance processes at the United Nations, at the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, which is where I work, and also at the regional internet registries and other venues. So the idea is that based on this foundation of technical or other certification or other activities, you then come to a position where you can take your knowledge and your experience to the global level and influence policy. So when you look at the Internet Governance Project, they have published their areas of focus. What are they? Cybersecurity and its implications for internet governance, which indicates that once you get involved in any kind of cybersecurity activity as a profession, you are in effect laying the foundation for activities in the area of internet governance. And as you will see in a moment, there is a wide variety of careers that you can actually get involved in cybersecurity. BGP routing security, BGP, another acronym. Once you get into this field, you end up in acronym soup. BGP routing only refers to a particular type of networking, and once you get involved in this type of networking, you can actually have that as a foundation for leapfrogging again into internet governance. The Internet Governance Project looks at the governance implications of ICANN's jurisdiction, and I think I just lost my slide. Can we switch back to what I had before, please? Sorry? So, as I was saying, can we switch back to the slide that I had before? I think I just lost my slides. Just give us a moment while we sort that out. I'm still in presentation mode on this side. Just let me know when I can continue. Okay, is that where I was? Okay. Right, so we were talking about the areas of focus of the Internet Governance Project. And we were down to ICANN's jurisdiction and ICANN's accountability. And moving on from there, we also see that the impact of the global internet governance on the individual freedoms of expression and privacy is also an area of focus of the Internet Governance Project. So the idea is that once the activity of a young professional has any one of these key points as an area of focus, it is then easy to leapfrog into the broader spectrum of internet governance. So if you look at the traditional listings of careers in areas, for example, such as information technology, we see the usual suspects: data analyst, database administrator, knowledge manager, network operations, networks, and so on. These are all of the traditional areas that any young person interested in IT can Google and learn more information about. But these are also areas that will allow a young person to springboard into the wider global area of internet governance. So what would happen is you would bring your knowledge and experience from any one of these areas in IT into the field of internet governance. And it is a similar situation with cybersecurity. Again, we have a host of traditional careers in the area of cybersecurity, cyber defense, security architect, software security assessor, and so on and so forth. And when it comes to the internet, there is another important area of domain name security that can be looked at in terms of a specific area of cybersecurity. And with that background, you can launch into areas of internet governance in ICANN and in other areas. Similarly, in the area of cyber effects and cyber intel, we have our usual list of areas which can be Googled. And once you are involved in one of these areas, target development, cyber intel planner, again, you can launch easily into general internet governance. And finally, this interesting cross-functional area where you start to see careers which may not necessarily be careers directly related to technology. For example, down on the bottom, you see law enforcement, counterintelligence, forensic analysts. You do see some cyber careers, some IT careers, but you also see other careers like privacy officer, privacy compliance, executive cyber leadership, which may not necessarily be directly related to those traditional IT areas. And this is to indicate that for a career in internet governance, you don't always or you don't necessarily need to be an IT professional. And if we look now at what the roadmap can be, it's a basic approach of starting with something comprehensive and then specializing, as it comes to IT. And if you look at security, it's the same thing. You start with a foundation program, you do the intermediate programs, and then you can go on to the more advanced programs depending on how far you want to go. And that would then take us into, in my opinion, the final and the most important slide in this presentation. What happens in the day of an internet governance professional? And it's really straightforward. You have these global spaces and you have these Caribbean spaces where internet governance officials and internet governance professionals operate. And the spaces, again, it's another alphabet soup. The spaces have these acronyms: IGF, ICANN, RIR, ARIN, LACNIC, and so on. So the IGF is that global space where internet governance professionals who may have gone through the Diplo Foundation or other means of preparation actually have their deliberations. ICANN, the organization where I work, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, is the global organization which determines policy with regard to the names and numbers on the internet. And again, you can go into those kinds of entities having the foundation of all of those traditional careers that I showed you earlier. ISOC, the Internet Society, is another global organization. You have also your network operators groups, the NOGs. You will hear about NANOG, the North American Network Operators Groups. You also have the IEEE, the International Body of Engineers, and the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, which actually makes standards for the internet. And of course, the ISSA, the Information Security Systems Association. So all of these are global entities that actually are the places where information and internet governance professionals would actually operate. And it's a very good idea to look at our own regional situation and the Caribbean spaces in which internet governance professionals would operate. Our national IGFs, as you've heard from Barbados and Haiti and St. Vincent this morning, those are places where the internet governance professionals would operate. Our Caribbean IGF, right here in Trinidad and Tobago. And there's also a Latin America and the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. Now, CARIBNOG, which I want to spend an extra minute talking about, the Caribbean Network Operators Group. Those presentations that we saw earlier on from the young people are precisely the kinds of presentations that you would see at CARIBNOG, both in form, content, and technical professionalism. So all of those presenters this morning immediately have a buy to go into CARIBNOG. And I can tell you, I spoke with my colleague Bevel Woodin at CARIBNOG, and I recommended to him that he should highly consider those very presentations that we heard from the young people this morning for presentations to be made at the Caribbean Network Operators Group. We have CANTO, which originally stood for the Caribbean Association of National Telecoms Operators, which is another regional forum. We have our regional internet registries that operate in the Caribbean. These are the entities that give out the IP addresses to ISPs and so on. There's ARIN Caribbean and there's LACNIC Caribbean. We have Internet Society chapters in most of the countries of the Caribbean. And in Trinidad, we have a very unique organization known as TT-MAG. MAG stands for Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group. And this is a group that has been put together with representatives of government, business, the academic community, the technical community, and civil society. And this is a group which started off with developing policy for the management of the country code top-level domain in Trinidad and Tobago, .tt. But it has extended its reach to now look at discussing general policy, and there's actually a TT-MAG meeting that takes place every year now in Trinidad and Tobago. So these are some of the national spaces and Caribbean spaces where internet governance professionals would interact and engage, which would lead to wider engagement at the global level, at IGF, at ICANN, at the RIRs, NOGs, and IEEE and ISSA. So I hope this gives a rough idea of how you can start a career and lay a firm foundation for launching into an internet governance activity, and also what you are likely to be involved in once you have chosen to use that as your career path. So I think, Anna, this brings me to the end of this very short presentation, and I hope it would have sown some seeds for further discussion in the next segment. So
Wonderful.
Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Daniels. I actually have a question.
Sure.
So I know you were talking about unconventional careers that are not necessarily directly attached to information technology. This is very random, but where would you class a social media influencer?
Exactly in that category. Because typically a social media influencer is not necessarily a network engineer, not necessarily a BGP engineer or anything like that. However, that the influence of that individual plays a very important part in internet governance generally. That individual will determine what the views of stakeholders might be across the board in a very broad spectrum, and can then influence how the thinking about particular issues in internet governance takes a particular direction. So I wouldn't even say non-traditional, I would say non-technical.
Right.
So like lawyers, for example, typically would feel, oh, this internet governance thing is for engineers. No, there are hundreds of lawyers who are very active in ICANN, for example, looking at intellectual property, looking at domain names, and so on. Right. So typically you use the traditional careers as a foundation, and then you can springboard into careers in internet governance.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniels.
Thank you.
And guys, things are about to get lit. It's time for a discussion with a fireside chat on youth career paths and journeys in ICT. Our panelists for this session are, of course, our moderator, Asha Colley, SQL developer at Compings Consultants from the Bahamas. We have Michelle Marius from ICT Pulse, Christelle Vaval, attorney at law from Haiti, and Gary Kalu, who's joining us here live from CTU Trinidad and Tobago. They will guide you through the discussion. Ladies and gents, our esteemed panelists.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. We are excited to be here. I'm excited to be here. As Anna has informed everyone, I'm a SQL developer here in the Bahamas, and personally, I'm passionate about using my skills and my knowledge to develop solutions to long-standing socioeconomic issues in my community. So, of course, this is something I had to be part of. So that being said, in this segment, we're going to take a brief but deep dive into the journeys of our fellow Caribbean natives who have pursued careers in ICT and technology. So I will go ahead and introduce our panelists one by one, and then we can get the discussion started. Michelle Marriott is an experienced consultant, manager, regulator, engineer, and author. Michelle Marriott has 20 years of experience in the ICT and telecommunications space. She has worked in both the private and public sectors and in developed and developing countries in the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, and in the South Pacific. Currently, Michelle is the director of ICT Pulse Consulting Limited, a research and advisory firm that specializes in a broad range of ICT and telecommunications issues based out of Jamaica. She is also the founder of Project Calls, www.projectcalls.com, an online platform that collates tender opportunities from across the Caribbean region. Michelle is the publisher, editor, and primary contributor of ICT Pulse, a very well-respected and long-standing online publication that discusses topical telecommunications and ICT issues from a Caribbean perspective, which has a wide readership across the region and internationally. Finally, she also hosts the ICT Pulse podcast, where she deep dives into important ICT technology issues occurring in the Caribbean, thus enriching the conversation we could be having. Next up, Gary Kalu. He is a telecommunications and ICT specialist with over 25 years of experience in the telecommunications and ICT field. He possesses an excellent mix of qualifications and experience in the wide-ranging fields of engineering, project management, ICT policy and strategy planning and development, telecommunications regulations and policy development, public sector transformation, and digital government. He also functioned as head of the Telecommunications and Regulatory Affairs Unit in the Ministry of Public Administration, providing telecom policy guidance for the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our panelists and get this exciting journey this discussion going. So the first question that I wanted to pose to our panelists, I'm sure we all would love to hear how you got to where you are right now.
Well, okay, I'll start. This is Michelle Marius, so thank you so much for having me. I having studied electrical and computer engineering in Trinidad and Tobago, and I did an undergraduate degree and eventually did my master's. However, I think having that foundation is good and worthwhile, but you never quite know where your journey in life is going to take you professionally. And I think that is really what I want to emphasize. I started in the private sector working with a company, eventually switched over to government, but then I had the opportunity to leave the region and go to the South Pacific to work as a consultant. And I did about 2.5 years there, and then returned back to the region and was based in Jamaica, where I still am, and worked with the government of Jamaica, and then returned to consulting as well. Now, granted that I also still work as a consultant, but as Asha noted in her in sharing my bio, I am also, a blogger. I have been writing for ICT Pulse. I launched ICT Pulse in 2011, and I'm doing different things as well, all related to technology in different ways. So I think that is just the start of my story, and I'll hand over to the next panelist.
Sure. Gary, would you like to share next? I think we're on mute here.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Yes. So yes. Good afternoon. Good night to our listeners and our participants across the globe. As Asha said, I'm Gary Kalu, and I'm presently working with the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, the CTU, as the business development director. But my career started really in core telecommunications I'm an engineer, electrical engineer by profession. Started off in engineering with the telecoms operator in Trinidad and Tobago. And back then, of course, there was a monopoly operator. So that was the only service provider at the time. It is not as diverse. It is not as, you don't have the, the level of competition and the type of services that you have now. Strictly a voice network that you managed and you developed. So having started there and had I would say a career in the telecoms environment, my career shifted when we liberalized the telecommunications market in Trinidad and Tobago, and I started to focus more on the telecoms regulatory environment and competition. And so I had a career as well in that aspect of telecommunications, and then moved into government for a short while, working specifically in telecoms regulatory and competition environment, developing policies that will guide the development of the sector within Trinidad and Tobago. And further to that, I started a career as well in policy development, but went on to work at a government agency within Trinidad and Tobago, that's CIGF, and really developing the sector within government. So pushing for the use of technology within government and developing ICTs for government and for use by citizens. And then that expanded to a regional level when I joined the CTU. Now looking at deploying ICT policies and looking at developing ICT within the region as an avenue for economic and social development. And I'll leave it at that for this point.
All right, thank you so much. We were happy to hear about your career and your journey. I just realized that I never introduced our third panelist, Christelle Vaval, and I do apologize for that, Christelle. She is just as important as all of our other panelists here. So Christelle is an ever-evolving lawyer based in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Her legal training and education was completed in Quebec, Canada, where she obtained a double major in civil and common law. She is also a duly registered member of the Quebec and Port-au-Prince Bar Association. Christelle is specialized in business law and intellectual property and is also a certified .HT registrar. She is also actively involved in many nonprofit organizations at various levels, commerce and industry, member of the Haiti Committee of Montreal Bar and of the Diaspora Committee of AmCham Haiti. She also serves as focal point for Haiti for the Organization for the Harmonization of Business Law in the Caribbean project. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome her as she shares her journey throughout her career in this industry.
Thank you, Asha. So as you can see with my bio, I'm a lawyer. I've always been interested by technology, and I was specialized in intellectual property. So when I had the chance to choose my career, I tried to focus more on IT. And I was involved at some point with ICANN as a counselor on CCNSO. And now in Haiti, I get from time to time consultation in IT. So in Haiti, unfortunately, the market is not big enough, so I don't have the chance to be specialized only in this area of the law, but I do get consultations with companies, ISPs or international, multinational companies who want to work in Haiti.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we have such a wide widely diverse range of skills and just backgrounds here on our panel. And so the next question that I want to pose is, I guess, what interests, since we have law, we have private consulting, and even the government sector, what kind of interests, skills, character traits would you guys say was essential to progressing throughout the ICT technology industry? What kind of interests and skills or even character traits contributed to, I guess, propelling you forward? Gary, would you like to answer first? Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start. Okay, so I think for me, the biggest one, I think, is just to be prepared to pivot and embrace the changes that occur, because I think even just from my own experience, the opportunity that you start with or where you start your career, oftentimes, and as you can see probably over the last 20 or 30 years, telecommunications and ICT, the internet is not what it was 20, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, it almost did not exist. And certainly we could not have envisaged what it would have been even 10 or 15 years ago, what it has become.
Right.
So I think that it's the industry and the sector has been evolving, and the best thing that you can do is to really try to evolve with it. And if an opportunity comes up, instead of thinking of the 30 reasons why you ought not to do it, is to really embrace the one reason why you should. And sometimes it might just be because it is offered to you. You may not necessarily have much to do, or it's just a new and different experience, because I think that has been the biggest, learning experience for me, and what I've sought to embrace in my career so far.
Thank you so much. Christelle or Gary, any of you care to answer next?
Yes, I think what has influenced me a lot is the fact that when I joined the telecommunications industry, it was not the area that I intended to have a full career, but it was an interesting environment. Even though, as Michelle pointed out, that there's been so much development within the last 25 years that I've been in the industry, and I've seen the whole evolution of the industry and technology and the changes. It's just phenomenal. But really, I wanted to get a picture and a view from all the stakeholders, the interested stakeholders within the telecoms industry at that time. So I started off with working with an operator, and there are various things that an operator, of course, they want. Their bottom line is dollars and cents. So they have a vested interest in ensuring that they can make money. That's the bottom line. And also being at the time a monopoly operator, there were certain privileges that an operator at that time would have in terms of having been a monopoly. They have a power on the market. So it was interesting for that part of my career when I looked at it from an operator's standpoint, and and their interest in the market, and then taking on the view of an operator, and then moving to taking on the view of a regulator, looking at how can we make the market more a level playing field, and what are the things that will influence better service, quality service, more services, influence that kind of behavior within the market. And that was a different view from me, and then it was a totally different view from the operator, because the operator's interest is to make money. The regulator's interest is to ensure that services are provided and that the networks are deployed, and that you have competition, and active and good competition within the market space. And then taking on the view from which I did go into after, which is from government, from looking at policies now. How do we want this market to evolve? what do we want for our citizens? What do we want for our customers? How do we want telecommunications to influence economic and social development? So I was fortunate enough to have all those views and to participate and to be instrumental in developing that, particularly for Trinidad and Tobago. And then now, from a more wider perspective, at a regional level now, having to being able to influence how we develop the sector for the Caribbean, and also how do we influence our space, not just within the region, but also have an influence on the international environment as well too.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Christelle, would you like to add to the discussion here?
Yeah, so pretty much everything has been said, but my advice to someone who would study law today, I would recommend to take some coding classes and not to stay. Generally, people who study law are staying away from mathematics. And I think that right now, everything is changing. The profession is changing right now. So I would recommend to take some good math classes and take some of the basis, because right now, as I can see, the clients, everything smart contracts. So you need to have at least some basic in coding, and also to understand, to be able to read certain documents right now. And also you need to accompany your client. Everything now is being digital. So you need to understand, and the courts and everything is changing right now. So you need to adapt, just like Michelle was saying. You need to be able to pivot whenever it's shifting. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing that. I'm just going to shift a little bit, and since this is technically our youth segment of the IGF, I want to focus on that just for a little bit. So my next question I want to pose is, how do you guys think that seasoned persons such as yourselves and other veterans in the ICT industry can do their part to encourage the youth interested in any aspect, STEM, IT, ICT, and prevent the increasing brain drain problem across the region? This is a very open-ended question that our panelists can take. The floor is open, guys.
Okay. All right. I'll start again. I mean, I think it's bigger than just what we seasoned persons can do. Unfortunately, because and quite seriously as well, because what is happening, I think, is that here in the region, we are educating our upcoming generations incredibly well. They are seeing what are the latest trends in technology. They are acquiring skills that would allow them to work in a particular way, to do certain things. And when they're done, it's like you're all excited by your potential as an individual, and you see the jobs that are available elsewhere, but what might be available in your country is to be some sort of computer technician. You go to school to do engineering, and you're learning all sorts of fantabulous things. You're learning advanced mathematics, etc., to be able to create and to design and to build. And here you in the region, you may find that a lot of the jobs are to basically connect computers together and develop a network and answer complaints from your from staff members as to how to turn on their machines and why their keyboard isn't working, and those sort of things that can be very frustrating. And also the compensation is really limited relative to all of the monies that you've invested in your education, etc. So I think though that it's really about the opportunities that are available in the region, which may not necessarily just be something that, you know, me as an individual can solve in a comprehensive manner to save the brain drain. And it may mean to some degree that countries have to become a lot more serious about the technology that they need and to value it as well, because I think even here in the region, we are still struggling with getting, you know, the technology officer, your CIO, whether or not, you know, large organizations have that as a designated position, whether that person is part of the management team and thus having some sort of stake and being involved in the budget and the corporate culture and influencing all of those sorts of things, as opposed to feeling as if, you know, they're only taking money from the company to go and, you know, set up servers and that sort of thing. So I think there has to be a greater shift that needs to happen, and some of it really comes from having greater direction as countries. I think that so many of our countries do not have like national ICT plans or something to do with digital economy, just that we all understand what we're working towards and not necessarily doing things in some sort of ad hoc manner, and really looking to engage both the private and the public sector to achieve whatever we think is the end goal that we have in mind. Over to you.
Oh, I completely agree. And this is something that even me and my boss and I discuss all the time in the office. I mean, as DJ Anna informed everyone, I'm a SQL developer, and for those who are at least a little familiar with programming languages, you know that this is a very niche, meticulous, kind of detailed position. I can't just pick up the work of a web developer, so to speak. And yet, I am pretty much known as the IT lady in my office. And so, to your point about, you know, more so on a larger scale, just valuing the work of such a heavy and important, I guess, sector is a big part of it. So I thank you so much for sharing. Gary, Christelle, please feel free to take it over.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start this time.
Yeah, you know, Michelle, very interesting comments and some good remarks, you know, regarding, you know, as an individual, it's perhaps very difficult to influence and to make these changes. And so I'm actually very, very happy and pleased to be part of a CTU, the CTU team. And we really try to influence and make changes across the region, you know, with respect to governments, you know, the proliferation of ICTs within government and how ICTs are used. So at that point, you know, governments need to be more proactive in the use of ICTs and create more opportunities for job even within government. The acceptance of ICTs, of developing a national plan, of engaging all the stakeholders, your private sector, and to really creating, you know, an environment, an ecosystem that will engage and develop, you know, the sector, and so influence and create jobs as well too. But not only that, you know, we need to also look at our education system and ensure that it is fit for purpose, because, you know, we do have, when we look at some of the career paths and some of the opportunities, we are limited in the scope of our curriculum. So we need to relook our training needs and our ICT, you know, to assess our ICT gaps and try to fill those as well too. And another aspect is also, we have all these you know, big tech operators and organizations, and I think what we try to do as well as CTU is to partner with them, to bring them into the region, to help them to build capacity, to work and partner with organizations like ICANN and like ISOC and ARIN, all the network, all these operators of the internet. And so we are able to to develop capacity, to build capacity, and look at areas that that ordinarily would not be a career that somebody would be looking for. Innovation, entrepreneurship in ICT. We need to ensure that we can create the enabling environment for those things to foster and develop it in the region.
For sharing. I know I dropped off a bit there, having my own technical difficulties. Christelle, would you like to contribute any further on that topic? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry. Haiti is a different market, and I feel that it's more complicated than the rest of the region. I would say right now, I'm not among those who's waiting after the government to make some changes, but right now our problems are more basic, like we need to have a minimum of security. If we have security, the fuel shortage right now that we are facing of, because we barely can survive. We cannot go to the gas station just like normal people. So these basics will allow businesses to function and people to get work. So right now our brain drain are more people who can't survive in the country that are leaving. So with a minimum, right now we would be able to work and have more competition in the market and have new companies coming, because we have the advantage of people who speak English, French, Creole, and even Spanish. So this is the advantage of Haiti right now, but it's the situation right now because we lost our president and we are like in a gray zone. We don't know what's happening. That's
all right. Yes, go ahead. Thank you guys so much for sharing, and you all made some very good points, and thankfully we have someone here on this panel who is in a position to hopefully bring some of these back to his team of persons at the CPU. And a lot of these issues aren't new. A lot of these things that we're saying, they're not out of the blue. They're not, like I said, they're not new. These are things that we are all, I'm sure, have been working on for quite some time now. These issues have been longstanding, and I'm hoping, at least for my sake and my children's sake, that we can make some policy changes, as Gary said, in the next few years, so that we really are strengthened as a region in terms of how we value, how we interact, how we honestly, how we guide and how we solidify in policy these ICT initiatives. So with that, before I go on to another question, I just want to check in with DJ Anna and see how much time we have left for this panel.
I think we're actually probably running out of time, but
Hello.
that's okay. I guess we have, they could probably give me an idea of how many minutes we have left. They just said none. Is it none? Okay, yes. Unfortunately, the timer is set to 0 now, so we don't really have that much time left. But I guess you guys can wrap up. I think we may have lost Asha. Is she still there? Okay, yes, I think we actually lost Asha, unfortunately. But once again, thanks so much to our esteemed panelists for being here and giving us some wonderful discussions. It was really great having you guys here. Thank you guys so much. And thanks to Asha. I know did we lose? Okay, she's back on, Asha.
I am sorry. I promise my connection was amazing before I began, of course.
Yeah, I actually was saying that we don't have that much time.
Asking how much time we had left.
Yes, we actually have run out of time, unfortunately, so you guys can probably wrap up and say your goodbyes.
Yes. Well, once again, thank you so much to our panelists for joining in this discussion, taking their time out of their busy schedules to really share their journeys, share their insights, share their ideas, and share what they would like to see happen, things they look forward to. I surely enjoyed it, and I hope the rest of our attendees enjoyed it. I know that we've run out of time. I don't think we have time for a question and answer, but I'm sure that you can find either the recording or information for each of our panelists so that if you wanted to reach out to them directly, there was that option. Thank you again for having me and the rest of our panelists. I don't know if you'd like to say a word of goodbye, just a small encouragement to maybe our attendees or anybody else. I think you're on mute, Michelle.
Oh, just goodbye. I mean, it was lovely to be here and just to have I guess what would be a quick conversation on just, our careers in ICT so far. So just thanks for having us.
Same here. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and we look forward to many more youth conferences in the future.
Same here. Thank you for having me, and hopefully we get to have another conversation soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks once again to our panelists. We truly appreciate your presence. Really enjoyed the discussions today. And that's a wrap, folks. I hope you found today's sessions as informative as I did. I'm looking forward to having you here tomorrow. I now invite Mr. Nigel Casimir, once again the Deputy Secretary General of the CTU, and Tariq Mohammed, Radio Engineer Consultant at the International Telecommunication Union, to deliver the closing remarks and next steps. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much, Anna. Well, I think we've made a good start today to our 3-day journey.
I think so.
This morning, of course, we introduced our topic, Internet Governance, and the CIGF, and we had all our partners to whom I offer my sincere thanks for their continued support. People like ICANN, Albert was here, Kevin Swift from LACNIC, Aaron, Mr. Bevel Wooding, and ISOC, Mr. Shernon Osepa. We also heard from the UN IGF Secretariat, and all the reports from our Caribbean IGFs, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Haiti, eventually we did get it in, LAC-TLD as well, and the UN IGF Secretariat as well. I did also make some appeals or bring up to date the audience on the state of CTU's internet governance policy work, and did make an appeal for persons to get involved. And some people heard, because in the interim I noticed that I did see a few applications come in to register for our online forum. Wonderful. Right? Yeah, and I think our afternoon session with the youth, the inaugural Caribbean Youth IGF, went very well. And the gentleman to my left here, Tariq, didn't actually speak on any panel, but he chaired the organizing committee for the Youth IGF. So, Tariq, maybe you could give us your impressions of how things went and what you think or what you hope persons would have gotten from the
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Nigel. So, on behalf of the planning committee, I just want to say thank you. We had a very fun 2 months in planning this, and to see it execute over this 3 hours this afternoon, it was excellent. The delivery was great, and we're happy to have gotten so much feedback, so much participation. In fact, I heard from the CTU that over 200 participants that have registered at the start, at least taken at the start of this event, were youth. So that's a significant chunk of the participants, the registrants, in fact, for this session. I was really glad as well to hear Mr. Albert Daniels as well as Mr. Kalu, who came in actually during the MIRC MIRC presentation to say how great it was. And we look forward to taking these discussions a step further in future sessions and to planning future youth engagement sessions with the CTU. So on behalf of the Youth Committee, I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. We have 2 more days, and in those 2 more days, we'll be focusing a bit more generally on the small island developing states, and we'll be having presentations and panel discussions with persons from all over the world. So we are invited to continue this journey with us over this next couple of days. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Well, 9 o'clock Eastern Caribbean time, 1300 hours UTC. For all the all the viewers that we might have from around the world. Yes.
Thank you so much, guys. We're looking forward to having each and every one of you join us tomorrow for our 2nd day of the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. We definitely enjoyed having you all here today. I'm DJ Anna signing out. We'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Indeed.